So lawyers are not supposed to file groundless lawsuits. When they do, the worst that usually happens is the case gets dismissed and the losing side has to pay court costs. Now, in rare instances, though, when a civil action is frivolous enough or filed in sufficiently bad faith or under false premises, the court can sanction the attorneys involved. Well, today, Sidney Powell, Lynn Wood, and other lawyers who sued to get election results thrown out in Michigan faced a federal judge. By most accounts, it did not go well for them. Judge Linda Parker asking the attorneys if some of their assertions, quote, should have been obviously questionable. Just to remind you of some of those assertions, here's a small sampling of Sidney Powell's statements about the 2020 election.
What we are really dealing with here and uncovering more by the day is the massive influence of communist money through Venezuela, Cuba, and likely China.
I think the Justice Department has known about this issue for a long time and turned a blind eye to it.
The software that goes in other computerized voting systems here as well, not just Dominion, were created in Venezuela at the direction of Hugo Chavez.
As far as I know, this is the first case of abject fraud and obtaining a coup of the United States of America. I wonder how much the CIA actually had a role in starting this kind of program to begin with.
President Trump won by a landslide. We are going to prove it.
It should be that he can simply be reinstated, that a new inauguration date is set, and Biden is told to move out of the White House, and and President Trump should be moved back in.
I was trying to read the patches on her motorcycle vest. Joining us now, Michigan's Attorney General Dana Nessel. Attorney General Nessel, thanks for being with us. What is your reaction to what went on in court today?
Well, let's just say that I don't think the legal futures are very bright for any of the attorneys that were the plaintiffs' lawyers on the case in Michigan. And I think they face a similar fate in various other states as well.
In addition to several other Michigan officials, you asked the judge in this case to levy sanctions, including financial penalties, against the attorneys who filed this baseless lawsuit. Based on the comments from the judge today, do you have a sense of where you think it's headed?
I think that we're likely to be successful, but I think the takeaway for me from today is this. You know, you heard each and every one of those attorneys double down on their assertions, right? There was no contrition. There was no recalcitrance. There was no apology. They were unrepentant about the same lies that they had initially told during the course of this case, all of which had been wholly and entirely debunked. So what I think is important is not just that these attorneys be sanctioned, because they've already made God knows how much money off of disseminating these lies, but that they be disbarred, that they be stripped of their law licenses, because what they've learned, if anything, is that, you know, profiteering off of election conspiracy theories can be very rewarding. And that's why these lawyers need to know that if they try to do this again, that they're going to be unable to, because otherwise, if they're not disbarred, they'll do it again in 2022, in 2024, and soon we'll have no faith in the integrity of our electoral system anywhere in America.
It also, I mean, if they're not disbarred, it emboldens who knows how many other, attorneys who want to get on television and want to make a name for themselves to figure, you know what, I'll roll the dice on it the next time and I'll get on the bandwagon.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, what we need to be able to say is this. Even if these attorneys can go on television and say what they'd like, or go on social media and lie, or even, go to CPAC or some other friendly audience, they cannot go into a court of law and make these flagrant misrepresentations. And if they do, they're going to suffer consequences, and that if there is one place where facts and truth still matter, it is in our system of justice.
In February, a Michigan attorney working with the Republican plaintiffs argued that your office had attempted to, and I quote, chill free speech in your push for sanctions. The argument has obviously been a common refrain for anyone, from anyone really, shilling the big lie. Do you think people truly don't understand that a court of law has higher standards than, say, a group of conspiracy theorists protesting on a public sidewalk?
Well, that's the thing about being an attorney. You know, you take an oath. And that's why when you go into court, you say to the judge, Your Honor, as an officer of the court, I make the following representations. And you don't have to be sworn the way that other witnesses do that are lay people, because you have already taken an oath when you become an attorney. And that oath is not to make misrepresentations to the court, not to mislead the court, to make certain that any representations you've made, you have adequately vetted to ensure that they are accurate and that you're not just making ridiculous statements, and that's what you're relying upon. And it was clear during the course of the proceedings today that none of these attorneys made even a minimal effort in order to ensure the accuracy of the affidavits that they submitted or any of the other claims that were made in the course of this complaint or these briefs. And it was pointed out that even in some cases, you know, a 30-second inquiry onto a website would have disproven some of the allegations that they were making.
Yeah, and again, continue to make, as you said, unrepentant.
You know, Michigan was targeted by the former president and his supporters trying to overturn the election. Lawmakers, including Sidney Powell, Lynn Wood, sued using witness statements that claimed supposed fraud, right? Well, today they faced the district court, Judge Linda V. Parker, grilled them on whether they had even tried to verify those statements, saying this: there's a duty that counsel has that when you're submitting a sworn statement that you have reviewed it, that you have done some minimal due diligence. How do you think today's hearing went?
Well, it was 6 hours, so it certainly was. It was a very educational experience, I think, for a lot of folks who watched it. It shows that there is a lot of due diligence happening with regards to this question before the court. Should there be consequences for when attorneys who use their privilege and access to the court to try to undermine democracy with no facts, frivolous claims, with one goal of sowing seeds of doubt among the public about the integrity of our elections? And I think one of the things that I hope comes out of this and other efforts to seek sanctions against the attorneys who led these frivolous lawsuits are real consequences and accountability. Because if we don't have that, then this is going to continue. And we cannot have this become the new norm in our democracy. We have to respect the laws. We have to respect the Constitution. And we have to respect the votes and people's voices. And that's why this hearing today and the consequences that may come from it is so important.
These lawyers are facing possible disciplinary action in Michigan. They could face financial penalties, even be barred from practicing law in your state. What do you think should happen?
All of the above. And again, until we have real accountability for those who sought to overturn the results of an election simply because they didn't agree with the outcome, we're going to see this continue again and again. And that's really my greatest fear, that what we saw and overcame in 2020 may return in future elections and may be worse. And that determination now to find accountability and hold folks to accountable consequences is going to determine whether or not we see a repeat in the future. So I'm hopeful that there will be real consequences here. I certainly think that's the direction the judge is heading in. And I think this is one of numerous ways in which the courts can be utilized to seek justice in this case, to prevent future efforts to overturn elections based on frivolous evidence.
Listen, you know, it may not be right, but we have seen individuals, right, perpetrate frauds upon the court, right? And people who are not court officers. But when you have attorneys who seem to be doing this, do you think any of this, if they face, you know, disciplinary action, what have you, do you think any of this is going to shut down the lies and conspiracies about the election that a lot of folks in Michigan still believe?
It's I think two different things. One, will people keep trying to spread the lies? And to that answer, I think this accountability and consequences here in this case could stem the flow of this misinformation and efforts to deceive voters that continues to run rampant in our state and in others. But whether it will disinfect those who've already been affected by these lies and break through that misinformation remains to be seen. I think it's unfortunate that there have been these seeds planted and based on no evidence, we've got a lot of work to do to restore and ensure people have faith, rightfully placed faith in the integrity of our elections. But I'm committed to having those conversations with folks on the ground and continuing to use every tool at my disposal in the state of Michigan to restore citizens' faith in our democracy and ensure that they stay engaged, and that we continue to push back against these efforts to deceive any voters in our state about the truth of our democracy.
Jocelyn Benson, thank you.